one of Zach's neighbors comes up to me. He's just like, hey, Matthew. And I'm like, hey. He introduced himself. His name's Scott. And he goes, listen, I love Happy Hour. I'm a big fan of the show. I watch it every day. I'm like, thank you so much. I said, well, Big Show is here. He went, whoa, Big Show is here? He freaked out. And so I brought Big Show over. And so I want you guys to understand there is a subsection of our fan base that are Big Showiacs
there it is.
That are
Big showmen.
Big showmen.
Hitting the pose on them right now.
To figure out what do we call this subset of people?
Yeah.
Because it's like, how Parrot heads, Jimmy Buffett fans are Parrot heads, Grateful Dead fans are Dead heads. Like, are they big show heads? Are they
we'll
big
land
heads?
On something.
Yeah,
are they the big showers?
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Welcome, big showers, you drink free.
Big showers.
The fan base.
I wasn't really looking at the footage when Big Show did that, but his race.
It was unbelievable.
A lot of hand gestures in America these days.
That's called the Big Show pose.
Yeah,
the Big
pose.
Show is getting his
Like his own
flowers.
thing, yeah.
It's easy to see why Big Show is such a fan favorite. I did like your comment about how it's like being a fan of Seinfeld and saying your favorite character is Jay Peterman.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, or the
Yeah.
Soup Nazi, right? It's just like getting, fairly obscure.
Indeed.
But let's see. So some YouTube comments here. John Bellino 3058 says Big Show fans got to be called the Showstoppers.
Showstoppers.
Sure.
Which,
It's
by the
okay.
way, that's it. Well, if they knew Big Show's text threads during the show,
Yes.
that's actually fairly accurate.
Big Show, he messages
breaking
whenever
news, Big Show.
someone is dead.
Yeah, it's always, whether they have anything to do with fantasy football or not. Dutch no cut.
7440 says Big Showians.
The Big Showians,
Maybe
all right,
reference.
not bad. And Gino Benatti 7830 says Big Showpians. Big Showpians.
Big Showpians.
That's pretty good. He says
Yeah.
case closed. Big
Sounds like a
Showpians.
breed of Star Wars creature or something, but that's okay.
The Big Showpians. What do? I breed Big Showpians.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Terrifying.
I think we're going to go with Big Showers, but we appreciate everybody's suggestions, and we always love to read through the YouTube comments. So that is honestly, that's the quickest way to get on the show.
Yep.
Is comments on the tube, as they say.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'll do the intro. I'm Jay Crouch. He's Lawrence Jackson. That's Matthew
Hi.
Berry. Connor Rogers is had enough. He's not here today. He will be back.
He's at a Big Show fan fest, is what he is.
Exactly. And Big Show might be at that fan fest as well because he's not here either.
No, he isn't.
Hitting
Is
the
it?
pose on him.
Indeed. Okay, today we're going to look at Matthew's way too early
Big
top
Show.
50 for next season. But first, we're going to talk about a couple of news items, including Russell Wilson to the Giants. And we heard from Russ on wanting to start for the G-Men.
Yeah, I expect to be the starter and come in here and be ready to rock and roll every day. I think that, to be able to lead, I think this team's really looking for somebody to lead them in every way in terms of the process, in the offseason, during the season, our habits and our thought process and how we create a great winning culture and how do we continue to establish that and to really build on the things that we do well and the things that we continue to need to do. And so I think the big part for me is, just try to, this might be my 14th year to be able to lead an amazing group of men that really have big hopes and goals and dreams and desires, and we all share the same goal. And so I think that's the best part about it is I get to be around a lot of extremely talented guys.
Russ is a man after my own heart. I come in here ready to rock and roll every day as well.
Indeed. Very unique character, Russell Wilson. Hard not to cheer for him. Hope he does succeed.
I will just say this. I have met him a handful of times. He's exactly what you think he is, and I say that in a positive way.
Sure.
Like he is genuine, he is nice, he is focused on you. Like honestly, you need more people like Russell Wilson in the NFL. Just genuinely hopeful and,
It didn't end great for Russ in Pittsburgh because he kept on having to play Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Right.
Doesn't usually end great for anyone who's in that situation, but he did have a really good start in Pittsburgh, and he was 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, had a winning record with the Steelers. I think that there seems to be a lot of vitriol towards this signing. I don't really understand. I think this is a perfectly reasonable signing for the Giants.
Given where they are and given what the market is, 1,000%. So he may not have had the best year under Arthur Smith. Name a quarterback in the NFL history that has had a great year under Arthur Smith. Like Ryan Tannehill was like
He was
okay.
That was the best one.
Right, like there was one year where Ryan Tannehill was like, oh yeah, okay, and Ryan Tannehill got paid. But like honestly, like it's not like Arthur Smith is suddenly this guru. He's not Kevin O'Connell that's going to like suddenly take somebody. And so I think there's an argument that listen. To me, the better comparison is like, hey, was he great with Sean Payton, who is a good offensive mind, and so. But given where the market is, given where the Giants are, I think I agree with you. It's a perfect, like, Russell Wilson is a professional quarterback, right? He will run Brian Daboll's offense, and as much as I would have loved to see, from a pure entertainment value, Jameis Winston as the starter, like, because that's just fun with the quotes and everything like that. And you never know, is it a touchdown or a pick six? Like, wide range of outcomes anytime Jameis goes back to pass. But Russell Wilson will run this offense. He will sustain drives more. I think this is. I think this is an upgrade for neighbors on Twitter, and people are like, "Are you crazy? Like over Jameis?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I actually think they will be in scoring position more often. Russell will run this offense. Like Malik Neighbors got 170 targets last year. Like he's it's not like he's all of a sudden going to get more. Like the volume is always going to be there for Malik Neighbors, and so you just want somebody who is accurate, which Russell Wilson is, and who's going to get them in scoring position more often than I think Jameis would. Like Russell can still throw the deep ball.
Yeah, like saying that he's an upgrade for Malik Neighbors over Jameis Winston, I don't think that's even debatable. Because like you said, you want to keep the offense on the field more. In fact, that's what he kind of did for the Steelers, that like whatever Arthur Smith allowed him to do. But
Pickens was great once Russell Wilson took over.
Yeah, for Malik Neighbors, whether it was Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, First off, Malik Neighbors was wide receiver 6 last year in fantasy points per game, so it can only get better, or at least at the very worst be the same thing,
right.
So,
and he did that with like Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones and like this mismatch.
like you say, Matthew, with Russell Wilson with the deep ball, which he still can very much do, that will help Malik Neighbors because he didn't have that until the end of the season when they got Drew Lock in there. But now you get, like you said, a quarterback who could run the offense, kind of keep them in games more. I think it's great for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. Also, with all the Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito stuff and Daniel Jones coming off the injury, I think we forget that like, a few years ago, like Brian Daboll was like the quarterback whisperer.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy who, played a huge role in Josh Allen's development, who took the Giants to the playoffs out of nowhere with Daniel Jones, turning him into, putting him through a really good season that first year that Daboll was there. So this is like Russell Wilson, for all his flaws, he is probably the best quarterback the Giants have had since Eli Manning, really. And I think that with the weapons that they have, you would hope that Daboll can
that one year, that one Daniel Jones year where they went to Minnesota and they won the road playoff game. So
Jones was probably playing at a higher level that year than Wilson would be expected to this year.
But it's fine. Like last year, by the way, Russell Wilson was QB 15 in points per game. Middle of the pack QB2, which is about what he is. Like he doesn't run. He's a low volume passer, right? They're going to be a conservative offense. Out of the 32 qualified quarterbacks in QBR, he was 22nd. So he was like, the 10th worst. That's about right. Like he's like a mid to lower tier QB2, both in the NFL and in fantasy at this range. But again, like if you're the Giants, what else? Like the issue is, and we've talked about this. The issue is this is entirely on Giants management. Yeah. Ownership. No, I take it back. On Giants ownership. Brian Daboll, and this is going to come up later in the show, but Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are playing for their jobs this year. They've got to they don't have the luxury of saying, like, we'll take a flyer on Shedeur Sanders. We'll take a flyer on a rookie quarterback and live with it, because they're probably not going to be able to trade up to get Cam Ward. They probably explored that market, and the Titans have said, like, no, or they want way too much, and the Giants are willing to do it. So they're like, okay, well, we're not getting Cam Ward. So it's like we could, and maybe they still take Shedeur Sanders, but they need to win this year. They need to put out a competent team, and so Russell Wilson, given the options available, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Flacco or somebody, like, Russ was the best option, given that's what Shane and Daboll want to do. He was the best option for the Giants, given that. And again, like to me, ownership of the Giants either should have fired those two guys and said we're starting over with brand new coaches, or given them an extension so that they're not doing what they're doing. But given all those givens, I think they've done the
Gibbons.
best move they can, given everything.
I think the criticism is that, well, the Giants don't have a plan. You know what's better than, I think it's better to delay having a plan for a year than go all in on a bad plan this year and commit yourself to that long term.
Especially if they don't think there's a franchise quarterback. Again, like everyone says,
And
people
they also
believe in
might
Cam
not
Ward.
get him.
That's right.
You know, so they got to try to play their cards right the best way they can.
Like there's a very real chance that Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders go 1-2.
Yeah. And
they're
then,
sitting there,
and then
and then
just
you're like-
imagine if you have no Russell Wilson, no Jameis, you got Tommy DeVito, those two rookie quarter, then you really, USOL then.
Yes.
Okay, another veteran signing.
Lawrence, what does SOL, for the kids at home watching, what does SOL stand for?
Sheets out of luck. That's what it stands for.
Well, a man
All the
who's
young
in
folks.
luck. Man who's in luck is Stefon Diggs, who signed a
Damien, look
3-year,
that up. I don't think
$69
Lawrence is
million
correct in terms of
contract
what that means.
with the
Do me a
Patriots.
favor.
Out of luck.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, Lawrence, Diggs now number one option for Drake May. What's his fantasy upside?
I think he'll be a value, and I think this move could actually get slept on a little bit, and it's because of the injury. He'll be a value because he's coming off the injury. I remember some years back, Keenan Allen had been hurt 3 years in a row, never went past half the season. 2017 comes, he rips off 3-4 straight seasons of 1,200 yards. A couple years ago, CMC, he was going in the back end of the first round because he's coming off injury. So I think that's going to happen here with Stefon Diggs. People forget the first half of the season last year behind Nico Collins in 8 weeks. This is not a small sample size. 8 weeks, he was wide receiver 15, and he was second in the pecking order there. Now, maybe you get a downgrade in the offense, maybe in the quarterback, some a little bit. Drake May still growing, but this is what Drake May needs. He needs a guy who's been consistent, who's played at an all-pro level, who's actually done it. The Patriots have a lot of young receivers that they would like to see develop.
Yeah, you see him on your screen.
You see him on the screen there. But you got to get a guy in there that's actually done it, a guy who can get open. Now, Diggs may not be the guy that goes down the field half the game anymore, but he still could get open, still got good routes, and he's going to get those targets if he's on the field.
He had a 24% target share up until the time of his injury. And to your point, that's with Tank Dell on the field at some points, and certainly Nico Collins as well. C.J. Stroud, his first year in a new system. And so I agree with you. Like, he ran a lot more routes out of the slot last year for Houston than he did previously. So I think, maybe the days of seeing him, sprint down the sideline and catching these bombs from Josh Allen, maybe that's lesser. But I do think, like, in terms of the slot, in terms of opportunity, there's going to be a lot here. Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, was the only Patriots wide receiver to see even 70 targets last year. No Patriots wide receiver even had 75. So I think there's a massive target share available here from a good quarterback. And so it's just, I personally put Diggs right now. He's kind of in that 30 to 35 range at wide receiver for me. Let's see how healthy he looks come August, but all the reports are that he's way ahead of schedule. Obviously, a significant amount of money that would guarantee, like $69 million over 3 years, 24 of it guaranteed. If you go back and look at my 25 things, rumors I heard at the Combine, that was one of them, was that the Texans wanted Diggs back, but didn't think they could get him because they thought there would be a big market, that it wouldn't be just a one-year prove-it deal, and that ends up being true. There clearly was a market for Stefon Diggs. I had Drake May on my hate list after the free agency love-hate, and I don't know that I would change that much because while I think this is good for Diggs because I think massive target share, even though they're a bad team, it's still like the best they've done for Drake May is a wide receiver over 30 coming off ACL surgery.
Yep. Yeah. At DraftKings, the Patriots are now the second favorite to win the AFC East behind the Bills, which I think is a little bit aggressive. We'll talk about that in segment 3. But let's jump to your way too early ranking.
That is very aggressive.
Let's look at 1 through 10, headlined by Ja'Marr Chase, coming off a Triple Crown season, absolute monster. Saquon Barkley, historic year, breaking 2K, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CD Lamb, Puka Nacua, and then 3 other receivers, the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, and Brian Thomas Jr. Let's start at the top, Matthew. Was it close at all between Chase and Saquon for number 1?
It was not for me. Look, I mean, obviously monster year for Ja'Marr Chase. He gets paid as a result, but no one had more targets. No one had more receptions. No one had more receiving yards. No one had more receiving touchdowns than Ja'Marr Chase last year. He led all players in both red zone targets and end zone targets. And then you always look at okay, from the production last year, what could change from this year to next year? And for Ja'Marr Chase, it's all the same. T. Higgins is still there. Joe Burrow is still throwing on the ball. Mike Gesicki is still there. Same offense, same coach, same offensive system. Yeah. Maybe their defense is a little bit better, so they're not in as many shootouts, but I don't think their defense is going to be that significantly better. And Ja'Marr Chase, throughout his career, proud Fantasy Life investor, Ja'Marr Chase, by the way, has always produced. And so, to me, I think wide receivers, generally speaking, are safer and more consistent at a high level than running backs because of the injury history. And then you sort of go back to Saquon Barkley. And we love Saquon here. Saquon's awesome, right? He's amazing. But you sort of look at, like, okay, why did Saquon produce the way he did last year? Because one of the concerns about Saquon going into last year, and we talked about this, I said, listen, the Eagles don't really throw to the running backs. And when they get in close, Jalen Hurts is going to steal a lot of goal line touches. Yeah. And both those things came true. The thing that we didn't expect was that Saquon Barkley would break off 60-yard touchdown runs, like, once a game at least. And so it's just how comfortable are you that is going to sustain? When you get up to this high level, you have to sort of nitpick at 1 and 2, and that's what you're nitpicking here. Again, he's my number one running back, but if you want to, last year, when you include the playoffs, he had 482 touches. Woo. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, running backs coming off 300 touch seasons. 482 for Saquon. Now, again, he is built different than most human beings. His work ethic is off the charts. He's still young. He got extended by the Eagles, who are as smart a front office as there is in the NFL. Like, they know what they've got in Saquon, but that's why Chase over Barkley for me.
You said nothing was going to change with Ja'Marr Chase. A small thing did change. $40 million a year, that changes. So the Bengals going to get their money's worth. So you can expect those same targets because of that money. So, yeah.
Absolutely. With Saquon, I was saying he is built different. He clearly is. But at the same time, obviously he's dealt with a lot of injuries. Derrick Henry is built different. Derrick Henry broke his foot a few years ago, and outside of that, has basically been healthy his entire career.
Right. And he came back. Everyone was like, oh, that's a year injury, and he came back in 6 weeks.
He came back for the playoffs. And with Saquon, he has dealt with it was a high ankle sprain a couple of years ago. Obviously, he tore his ACL. He's just been banged up. And obviously, he looked fully healthy last year, but always a concern with running backs. Lawrence, let's go to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's fourth on Matthew's list. Obviously, he has number one overall player in fantasy upside, but what do you think his workload is going to be like next year?
I expect the workload to go up just a little bit. In fact, see my man Matthew right here. We at the Combine. Matthew know everybody. He get his little tidbits out here. So I know some people. And I don't know a lot. But the people I do know, they know a little something. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get more. David Montgomery's still going to be there, but I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get more closer to those 25.7 touches he got per game in the 3 games David Montgomery was out. We just talked about Saquon Barkley. I see Matthew has Bijan Robinson as his RB2. I would go into my fantasy drafts and I would just take Jahmyr Gibbs number 1. Even if you don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 20 to 25 touches a game, he just fell shy of 2,000 yards from scrimmage, sharing the workload with David Montgomery. That is insane. We're talking about Saquon Barkley as a guy who breaks these 60-yard runs, well, the other guy that does that is Jahmyr Gibbs. So Jahmyr Gibbs, to me, I'm going to have him as my RB1, which isn't something groundbreaking. He finishes running back 2 last year. But for a guy who averaged 32.5 fantasy points per game in the 3 games that David Montgomery was out, I just don't see how you pass on that big playability because there's only about 3 running backs, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe running backs that you see as the guy.
Listen, I have all these guys inside my top 4. So, again, at this level, you have to nitpick. I'm not going to look at you weird if I'm in a draft and somebody says they take Gibbs over Barkley or Bijan. They're all awesome. Yeah. They're all going to have monster years. I think the numbers with David Montgomery active last year are more instructive, though. Mm-hmm. By the way, to your point, in those games, in the 14 games with David Montgomery active, Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 18.9 fantasy points per game. He got 16 touches and 103 yards from scrimmage. So you're telling me that Jahmyr Gibbs gets 16 touches with a shot at a touchdown. Again, remember, nobody had more touchdowns from scrimmage than Jahmyr Gibbs last year with 20. He's played 32 career games. He had 31 touchdowns as well. So again, scrimmage touchdowns, not just not rushing touchdowns, all of that. But I'll just give you a quick trivia question here. Here's the entire list of running backs that had at least 70 yards from scrimmage in all 17 games last year. Jahmyr Gibbs, that's the list. There is floor and upside with Gibbs. I have him at 3 among running backs just because, again, because of the Montgomery factor. Ben Johnson's in Chicago. Does it take him a little while to adjust to a new offensive play caller? That's always a little bit different. Obviously, Saquon and Bijan have those backfields entirely to themselves.
Yep.
But you're nitpicking, they're all superstars.
And one more quick thing, and you're right. I think we should go more off of the numbers with Montgomery in. So that's 16 touches with Montgomery, 25 without. So one of those is really high. I would say it'd be in the middle. So that's 20-ish. I would say it goes there for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Matthew, probably the most divisive guy in your top 10, I think, will be Justin Jefferson, just because of the quarterback uncertainty. He's very likely going to have either someone who's never thrown an NFL pass in J.J. McCarthy, or maybe someone who's thrown 1 million passes in the NFL in Aaron Rodgers. Do you think that putting him at 5 kind of bakes in that uncertainty, or do you think that, like, we're having this exact same discussion last year and Justin Jefferson was a monster?
And made me look smart. People were like, why do you have Justin Jefferson as a top 4 guy overall? I had him as a top 5 player overall, and people were like, oh, Sam Darnold, really? And I'm like, the man produced with Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
The man produced with Nick Mullins. And by the way, Sam Darnold ended up having a lot better season than anyone expected, but it didn't matter. The man produced with Nick Mullins. So yes, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Flacco or Ryan Tannehill out of retirement or whoever is throwing him the ball, it doesn't matter. That's a rumor. That's a rumor out there that the Vikings have contacted Ryan Tannehill to come out and retire.
You should get another chance.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito's playing games in the NFL. Tannehill should as well.
Over the last 4 seasons, here's his ranks. Wide receiver 4, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 3. Like, he's never been worse than wide receiver 5 in a season, regardless of who's throwing him the ball. 4 straight seasons averaging 90 or more receiving yards per game. This is a guy who had an almost 30% target share last year. I would argue the emergence of Jordan Addison, a full year of healthy T.J. Hawkinson. The Vikings aren't stupid. Kevin O'Connell, reigning head coach. Kevin O'Connell, Jay Croucher's best friend. Kevin O'Connell.
Coach of the year.
Isn't a stupid man.
No.
And
Clever
they
man.
did, exactly. And this is not a guy who said, yeah, well, you know what? Because they had a shot at resigning Sam Darnold. They could have franchise tagged him. They could have brought him back, and they didn't. They were like, go ahead, Sam, because that's the confidence they have in J.J. McCarthy. That's the confidence they have in what they're going to do this offseason and in that offensive system, which is always going to feature Justin Jefferson. He's always going to be open. Please continue to doubt Justin Jefferson and allow me to get him in the middle to late first round as opposed to the top 5 in the first round, which is where he should go.
I mean, I say the same thing about him I just said about Jamar Chase. Like, Jamar Chase, 40 mil, Justin Jefferson, 35 mil, like that type of dough. It shouldn't matter who the quarterback is. And the fact that Justin Jefferson has proven it, like you said, with our boy Nick Mullins, over there. So, I mean, wide receiver 5, if that's the worst he's been, then why would he be ranked any lower than that? So when it comes to August, and we know for a fact that J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback, do you keep him at wide receiver 5?
No.
2.
Yeah.
5 overall.
5 overall. I mean, he's not my wide receiver 5.
Wide receiver. Oh, I'm tripping. Wide receiver 2.
He's
Definitely
my wide receiver 2, 5 overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not putting him above Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter what happens come August.
The thing with Jefferson is that, okay, so either the quarterback is going to play well, or the quarterback is going to play badly, and then he's in catch-up mode, and then you get the Nick Mullins situation.
Yeah, that was what that was. Yeah.
That's like, and he's putting up monster numbers there either way. So
again,
Jefferson is fairly
I think too much is made. Quarterback play can obviously elevate a player, but too much is made on quarterback play, and like this is why no one wanted Malik Neighbors last year. It's the same argument.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and by the way, Justin Jefferson obviously has a much longer track record of success in the NFL than Malik Neighbors, but we just talked about it. Malik Neighbors played with some combo of Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito and finished as wide receiver on a team that was crappy, a team that's going to pick 3rd overall in April, and he finished as wide receiver 6.
Yep.
And again, there were injuries to but still, like, no one that drafted Malik Neighbors was upset with the production they got out of him.
Indeed. Lawrence, Matthew has 7 wide receivers in his top 10 after the year of the running back, where Saquon Barkley wins Offensive Player of the Year, goes for 2K. Derrick Henry, a monster season as well. Josh Jacobs, even Jonathan Taylor at the end of the season. It was very much the year of the running back. Do you think that we are dismissing the RB renaissance that we saw last season?
Do I think we're dismissing it? I think, like, when I just said Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd take him number 1. I feel like you got to go into your drafts like this, right? You got to get at least one of these guys. You got to get at least one of these guys in this top 20 and then try to figure it out at wide receiver, because you want a guy who's in that 15 to 20 touch range. You look at a guy like Achane, 22.5 fantasy points in the 11 games that Tua started last season, but that got thrown off because Tua missed games. He misses games sometimes, and then it just completely went off the ship because what Achane brings is that receiving upside, and that's what he gets with Tua. So when you can get a guy like that at the bare minimum, but then you got guys above him like Derrick Henry and the guys in the top 10, Jonathan Taylor, those type of guys, you want to try to get at least one of those guys to anchor the running back room.
Yep. All right, well, let's jump to 11 through 20, which includes Devon Achane. Lawrence was talking about number 12, just in front of Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers at 13, CMC, who we're going to talk about. I think he might be the most interesting player in fantasy this coming season. A.J. Brown, Drake London, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, who quietly ended the season on an absolute tear, and then Bucky Irving, who did as well. But let's stay on Achane, Matthew.
He's at 12 overall, behind Malik Neighbors, just to
Yes.
clean that up. Yeah.
Yep. So Achane, who was much more productive as a receiver than as a rusher last season, what kind of workload do you think that he will get in 2025?
I think probably a similar one. Like he proved he could be a lead running back, but to your point, he was more effective as a receiver than he was as a running back. And his splits, I will say this, his splits when Tua started versus when Tua did not were stark. And so that is a concern given the long history that Tua has had. But it's worth noting that there were 11 games in which Tua Tagovailoa started as the Dolphins quarterback last season. And in those games, in the games in which Tua was the starting quarterback for the Dolphins, Devon Achane averaged 22.6 fantasy points per game. That would have been the number 1 running back in fantasy over an entire season, right? He is still young. Now, I know they like Jalen Wright. I think you'll see some more of him, or maybe they draft a bigger back as well to take some of the middle of the, middle of the line kind of off tackle stuff from him. But like, what does Mike McDaniel like to do? Get his guys in space, get them the ball, create mismatches, and that's what Devon Achane. And so the fact that he proved that he could be so effective out of the backfield as a pass catching running backs are more valuable, generally speaking, than running backs that don't catch the ball. I mean, you look at some of the other guys we're talking about here, like, Saquon's an anomaly, right? But earlier in his career he caught, but Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, the other guys we're talking about. Like, you want running backs that are 3-down backs that can catch the ball. Christian McCaffrey, et cetera. We'll talk about him in a second. But so in those starts with Tua, almost a 20% target share. He led all running backs in receptions and receiving yards as well. And so I do think his role will be more pass catcher than between the tackles, but he's clearly one of the big weapons they trust, especially as you see Tyreek Hill getting older.
Yep. Lawrence, let's jump to Christian McCaffrey, who is going to be very divisive and I think has huge variance not only in how he's going to perform this season, but also where he's going to get drafted. This time last year, he was the consensus number 1 pick, no questions asked. He's still only 28 years old. Has that much, obviously it was a terrible year for McCaffrey and he dealt with injuries, but has that much really changed?
I don't know, man. The whole injury thing and just starting out the season, he'll be ready. Then he wasn't ready for 12 weeks. He came back, wasn't himself. I think he needed a whole offseason to reset. I think, like I mentioned him earlier, as he was a value a couple of years ago. I think the same could be said here because Matthew just spoke about it. These running backs who catch the ball are the most valuable running backs. Devon Achane led all running backs with 78 receptions last year, right? If Christian McCaffrey comes back healthy, age be damned. He's 28, gonna be 29. Saquon Barkley turned 28 on the Super Bowl, and you see what he done. You telling me Christian McCaffrey in 15, 16 games ain't catching 78 passes? I think he is, especially now with no Debo. They got Ayuk coming off the injury. Christian McCaffrey could find himself being the guy again. No Jordan Mason.
Exactly,
too.
thank you.
It's a lot of, we could be like, well, damn, why would you let Christian McCaffrey get to the second round? Next thing you know, he got 12 catches in a game.
He played 3 full games last year, played 88% of the snaps. He averaged almost 19 touches a game, had an 18% target share. those 3 games, again, he didn't score a touchdown in those 3 games, whatever, but he was Chris McCaffrey. Like, the massive workload was there. Like, do we think Kyle Shanahan suddenly forgot to coach? Do we think this team isn't going to be good? Of course they are. Like, in terms of, and to your point, Lawrence, about there's less weapons for less experienced weapons for them to get the ball to. You're still going to you've got Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. Like, Chris McCaffrey will still be the focal point of this offense. I get it. There are going to be people out there that, like, just never again on McCaffrey because he was so awful last year and just ruined the season. But your point, that the fact that they were willing to trade Jordan Mason, by the way, also in the 25 rumors column that I got tons of crap on. Why would they trade Jordan Mason? Like, and they're not getting, they're going to second round tender, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, people are morons. They don't understand. When I put something out there, every once in a while.
I mean, would you take?
But anyway, my point is they have confidence in Chris McCaffrey. And I will tell you this. Here's the other thing I'll say. The same team source that told me, hey, that Debo's definitely going to get traded, and don't be surprised if Jordan Mason gets traded, both of which ended up coming true after I published my article, was like, Chris McCaffrey 100% healthy.
Yeah,
like, the team feels really good about where he is.
And you telling me if you have one of the later picks in your fantasy draft, let's say you're picking 10th in a 12-man league, and you just go 2 running backs. You end up with Derrick Henry, another old guy they said was old, and Christian McCaffrey. Like, you could figure that out at wide receiver. If you got Derrick Henry, you got your guy who's going to get you close to 15, 20 touchdowns. Then you get McCaffrey, a different type of back who can get you 80 catches. You end up with those 2 dudes in your roster, you'll be in the fantasy playoffs.
Okay, well, speaking of Derrick Henry, Matthew, Derrick Henry, 31 years old, coming off another massive workload. Do you think that...
Yeah. Shout out for the old guys getting it done. We are pro old guy on this show.
The morons just took a hit, but the old guys, we love the old guys. With Derrick Henry, we're just at the point where we just need to see the fall to believe it's going to happen.
I want to be off the bandwagon. You know, I'd rather jump off the train 1 year too early than 1 year too late. We've been saying that for 6 years now with Derrick Henry. Like, he's an anomaly. He is built different. I'm not sure he's of the human race because he doesn't seem to have the same DNA as anyone else on the planet. He is just a different dude. And, you know, every single year he proves it. I'll also say this, that even if he loses a step, and again, to date, we have not seen that happen. But even if he loses the step, just being the starting running back on a Lamar Jackson-led offense, he's going to walk into 10 to 12 touchdowns. It's one of the arguments we made going into last year why Derrick Henry was on my preseason love list and people were like, he's old and blah, blah, blah. It's like Justice Hill and Gus Edwards fell into like 20 touchdowns the year before, and Melvin Gordon. The ghost of Melvin Gordon.
Devontae Freeman.
Devontae Freeman.
The
ghost of Devontae Freeman.
We were starting him in fantasy.
1,000%. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're the starting running back of the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson's your quarterback, you know, pulling a linebacker spy away, like, you're falling into the end zone 10 to 12 times. That's just happening. And so then you've got Derrick Henry, who scored in 13 of the 17 games last year. He was top 6 in both red zone and goal-to-go rushing attempts as well. So, look, I have Derrick Henry as my running back 6. I have him at 17 overall, and I'm with you. At some point, we're going to be wrong on Derrick Henry, but until I see it, I think he's just one of those things that you just have to believe. Takes incredible shape, incredible care of his body. He's a workout machine, and so we're a pro old guy on this show.
Shout out to Devontae Freeman. We don't talk about him enough. Guy we do talk about a lot.
Falcon legend right there.
Or Melvin Gordon.
Brock Bowers, Lawrence. Do you see him as just tier 1 by himself among tight ends?
Yeah, when you get a tight end that's going for 110 catches, close to 1,200 yards as a rookie, those are Travis Kelce year 5 numbers as a rookie. Yeah, especially now that he got Geno Smith. Yeah, definitely.
And by the way, don't underestimate Chip Kelly as the offense coordinator as well, just because they're going to play at a much faster pace of play under Chip Kelly. So it's more possessions per game. It's a faster pace. It'll be a better offense under Geno Smith as well. Again, he was already the number 1 tight end, so how much higher can he go? But just you feel comfortable.
It's just about where you draft them now.
Exactly. But you do, like, I think in terms of, I think in an ideal world, I'd rather get like Trey McBride at the 2-3 turn. But I do think that Bowers is such a difference maker at the position that if you wind up with Brock Bowers where I have him, right, which is kind of the early second round, late first round, and a 12-teamer, I think that's you could easily do a stud wide receiver and Bowers and then get running backs on the way back.
Okay, we're going to hit our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that 2-3 turn and the rest of Matthew's top 50 rankings.
Those numbers that you predicted for yourself last year, you did that in 15 games. Like, you crossed the 100 catches, 1,000-yard mark in 15 games. So you spoke it into existence. Yeah. So let's do it again for the 2025 season.
I kind of like what I said last year. I like the 100,000 and 10. I think I'm going to stick with that. But, most importantly, I want the Cardinals to get in the playoffs. I think we were right there last year. We were knocking on the door, and we just didn't break it down. But this year I feel like Monty, JG, they've done a great job of building the team, building the culture, and I think next year there'll be no question we'll be in the playoffs.
Okay, Trey McBride headlines Matthews 21 through 30 as tight end 2 behind Brock Bowers, and he is followed by T. Higgins at 22, Lad McConkey, Kyron Williams, JSN, now with DK Metcalf not taking targets. Then we get to the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Breece Hall, and Devontae Adams, now an LA Ram. Let's start off, Matthew, with Lad McConkey, who is going to be Justin Herbert's wide receiver 1, coming off a sneakily epic rookie season and a great playoff performance. Not many Chargers played well in Houston, but Lad certainly did. Is this ranking, is it more a reflection of his talent or the lack of target competition?
Why does it have to be one or the other? I mean, because I think it's both. It is both, right? I mean, it's lack of target competition. It's his talent. It's also his quarterback and the connection that he had with Justin Herbert. This is a guy that had a 20% target share, at least a 20% target share in 13 of 16 games last year. Again, we always say this: targets are earned, and Lad McConkey earned them at a very high level last year as well. He also, by the way, he was getting over 10 yards per target. This wasn't dink and dunk stuff, which you sort of thought about with McConkey given kind of where he lines up and the type of player he is. But that 10 yards per target, 10.3 to be specific, third highest among all qualified active wide receivers as well. And so this is a guy, Lawrence, who was top 10 in receiving yards last year. And I don't care who the Chargers, there's no one in free agency that they're going to add. So I don't care who they draft. They will draft somebody. But McConkey is the number 1 pass catcher for a really good quarterback on a team that, yes, wants to be run heavy and conservative, but still is going to throw occasionally. And I think that the only knock on McConkey coming out of college was, can he be a full-time player? Because he'd been inconsistent in that area at Georgia. Last year, he proved he obviously could.
And speaking of being a full-time player, he put up those numbers last year, over 1,100 receiving yards. He only played 80% of the snaps in the games 4 times last season. I expect that number to go up. You talk about this is no dink and dunk. You know why it's no dink and dunk? Because we know Lad McConkey as a slot receiver, but this is a dude who does have the potential and skill. He can also play out wide. And you talked about bringing in people. They brought back Mike Williams, but they're not getting back the old Chargers Mike Williams. They getting back the Mike Williams who knows Justin Herbert. He kind of knows the guys, know the system and things like that. But Lad McConkey, I expect him to do even more this season. So appropriately ranked right here as a top 12 receiver for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Lawrence, in an absolute stunner, Jayden Daniels has made his way onto the rundown. Do you think, so Matthew has him ranked right behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Do you see those 3 guys as somewhat interchangeable as the top tier of quarterbacks, or is Daniels a clear third?
I would take the first 2, obviously. But you could say it's a tier break, but man, it's close because you got a quarterback here that can throw for 3,500, can throw for 4,000. He's also ran for over 800 yards. So that's where that comes in. This is the only guy right now that we've seen who could rush with Lamar Jackson statistically and have those type of numbers. This is a guy who could go for 1,000 rushing yards. So, yeah, he should be there. I would still take Josh Allen and Lamar first, but Jayden Daniels, if I get him, I'm not about to be mad.
Yeah, by the way, so would I. I would take, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson ahead of Jayden Daniels as much as I love him, as much as he is my, my heart. I have faith in 5, but that's why I ranked him. I ranked him 3rd. But this is somebody who last year had at least the second most fantasy points by a rookie quarterback in history. Had at least 19 fantasy points in 12 out of 15 games played. No rookie quarterback in the NFL, in the history of the NFL, has had more rushing yards than Jayden Daniels did last year, where he had almost 900 rushing yards. And what did the Commanders do this offseason? They added Laramie Tunsil. He's going to be protected. He's going to have a lot more time to throw, to pick apart defenses. They added Deebo Samuel, who I think he's going to slim down. I think he'll be healthy. He's on a 1-year deal. It's the last year of guaranteed money for Deebo Samuel, and he is a perfect fit. Deebo is for what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do. Remember, the Commanders last year, second most screens called. Deebo is like a perfect fit for the kind of offense they run, and so they'll use him in run after catch. I think in the draft, you'll see the Commanders also add to the wide receiver room. They'll add to the offensive line, and so. This has been a good offseason for Jayden Daniels. They also brought back Zach Ertz as well. They've still got Terry McLaurin there. So, sky's the limit for Jayden Daniels, who is number 5 on the field, but number 1 in your hearts.
Okay.
Future Hall of Famer,
Let's
Daniels.
take a look at who's
future Super Bowl champion, Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's take a look at who's number 31 through 40 in Matthew's heart. Headlined by Chase Brown at 31, then Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, who we'll talk about, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts, Marvin Harrison Jr. looking for a bounce-back season, Joe Mixon, James Cook, and the eternal Mike Evans at number 40. But let's start off, Matthew, with Tyreek Hill. And we heard from Tyreek Hill on Radio Row saying that he's going to have a bounce-back season.
Yep.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
What number was I in fantasy football?
This year, on a points per game basis,
Don't break my heart.
It was probably like 30s.
yeah, somewhere.
30?
Yeah,
This is the thing, though.
because you were
This
hurt.
is the thing, though.
Because you were hurt.
This is the thing, and we talked about this before. You're going to be a value now because,
Yeah.
Everybody drafted me high last year.
right,
You were
it might
top
be a
5
couple
pick.
rounds
You're
back.
always a top 5 pick. You know
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we going to
So-
catch you on the value end now. But see, you said you're getting faster.
Last year, you were wide receiver 29 in
Oh, wow.
fantasy football. So
Dang, bro.
So
Yeah.
what do you, so make a prediction right now, Tyreek. Make a prediction right now. What are you next year? Your wide receiver what?
Top 3.
Okay, well,
There you go.
Matthews doesn't have him top 3. He's got him wide receiver 16, but that's okay. It's not that long ago that Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill were 1 and 2 in Offensive Player of the Year. A year ago, now they've obviously both slid as they get older and dealt with injuries, but Tyreek Hill, do you suspect that you're going to be coming out of a lot of drafts with him because of the upside?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's worth a gamble, right? Like the downside of Tyreek Hill, which is what we saw last year, right? Only 4 weeks where he finished as a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. He had fewer points per game than guys like Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen, and Josh Downs. And yet, to your point, this is a guy that was a consensus top 5 overall pick just a year ago. Their offense was such a mess last year. The season started weird. He's getting arrested on the way to the stadium. Tua is in and out of the lineup. He was dealing with a wrist injury that we found out as well. I believe that there's going to be concerns, age, injury, the production from last year, that's all baked into the discount. Again, if a year ago Tyreek Hill was a top 5 overall player, and now he's going in the late 3rd, early 4th round, like that's all baked in there. And so I just feel like that's enough of a discount that it is worth, because the upside of Tyreek Hill we know is top 5 receiver in fantasy football. You heard it from the man himself. He's saying top 3. I think he's got at least one more great year in him.
Yeah, and we talked about Christian McCaffrey earlier. I don't know that I would, be dependent on a Tyreek Hill or a Christian McCaffrey, but you best believe I'm drafting both of them, especially catching them on the value. What's interesting about him in 2024, he had 123 targets. That's the least amount of targets he's had in the season since 2020. So if we could get him back to that 160 to 170 range, and a lot of that was the time that Tua missed. You had Tyler Huntley in there, and the offense just went off the rails. So you got to get the targets back too.
And they will be better at the quarterback room overall. They're not going to go into the season with no plan at backup quarterback. Obviously, they've already made some investments there as well. So I think into the 3rd round, early 4th for Tyreek Hill. That's.
If I'm getting Tyreek in the 4th, I'm like, yeah.
I think by the time August rolls around and you'll start to get some buzz on him, it'll probably be he'll go in the into the third.
He just got to catch that one deep route in training camp.
Exactly. And there's some social video. Exactly.
Okay.
So,
Let's jump to James Cook, Lawrence. James Cook had 18 total touchdowns. You worried a little bit about his value if the touchdowns regress a little bit because obviously 18 is possible but not likely to be repeated.
Right. So it's funny because the year before we couldn't buy him a touchdown, right? So I just expected to be something in the middle of that, right? This is the Bills offense. You got Josh Allen, the MVP at quarterback. You're going to be around the end zone. The thing about James Cook is he's one of those running backs who breaks those long runs too, so you love that. He doesn't need to be at the goal line to score. He only had an 8% target share. That was 38 amongst running backs, but again, the touchdowns kind of helped that out there. So while I don't expect 18 total touchdowns, he could do it again, but you don't want to go into a season expecting that, but still he could get you to double-digit touchdowns.
Here's the concern. This is a crazy stat for you, right? Last year, James Cook, a running back, scored 18 total touchdowns. 18 total touchdowns. If I tell you before the season, Lawrence Jackson, I'm going to give you a running back on a good offense, and this running back is going to score 18 touchdowns. Where do you think he finishes? 18 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, you'd guess top 3.
Right. He was running back 11.
Yeah.
He was running back 11 on a points per game basis. The man scored 18 touchdowns and couldn't finish as a top 10 running back overall. So we love James Cook here, but the concern is less than 50% of the team's red zone rushes, only 54% of their goal-to-go rushing attempts, under 15 touches per game, which is 26th among running backs here. He's a flex play. He's like a mid-tier RB2, because he's super talented and it's a great offense. Yes, I would expect touchdown regression. I think I have him at running back 14 right now. And I think that's about right. Again, he's a mid-tier RB2, with the potential for flex play version if Ray Davis ends up
give him the ball more,
gets more.
They give him the ball more. They playing in the Super Bowl.
Indeed. Okay, let's jump to 41 through 50 headlines by the Chubbler, Chubby Magic,
Yes.
Chuba Hubbard, Jayden Daniels, number 1 in Matthew's heart, Chuba Hubbard, number 1 in mine, followed by Xavier Worthy, Devontae Smith, Alvin Kamara, George Kittle, KW3, Rashee Rice, coming off the injury, James Conner, eternally underrated, Jordan Addison, and Chris Olave coming off an injury-plagued season. Matthew, let's start off with Xavier Worthy, another very high-variance player who is basically Patrick Mahomes' number 1 receiving option by the end of the season. How much of a jump are you expecting in year 2, and how much is he muddied by the return of Rashee Rice?
That's the biggest question. I can answer the first question if you give me the answer to the second question, which is how is Rashee Rice going to be healthy to start the year? Is he going to get suspended? If so, for how many games? Is it a 2-game suspension or is it a 6-game suspension? Is it an 8-game suspension? Wide range of outcomes here for Rashee Rice, and I think that's going to impact Xavier Worthy. What is true is that he found his way, as we've seen before with Andy Reid. We saw it with Rashee Rice's rookie year. Slow start, but by the end of the year, he'd learned the playbook. He'd expanded his route tree over his final 6 games. This is including the playoffs. Xavier Worthy averaged over 21 points per game, had a 26% target share. They were actively looking for ways to get him the ball. No DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, they bring back Hollywood Brown, but honestly, Travis Kelce is another year older as well. I think this offense will go through Xavier Worthy dependent on the health and availability of Rashee Rice. So right now, I have Xavier Worthy as a wide receiver 21 and, number 42 overall. But that's a bit of a hedge until we get more information on Rashee Rice.
Yep, last guy for us, Matthew. James Conner, the most underrated player in fantasy, it seems like every year. Do you think that he'll be undervalued again?
Yes, and he will be once again as well. All 4 seasons with Arizona, he's been a top 15 running back, and we talked about this. If you read my 25 rumors from the Combine column, is just Jonathan Gannon was like, I think RB 1A and B with him and Trey Benson. But I'm telling you right now, talking with other team sources, that quote got a little overblown. It's going to be like 65-35 Conner. When they get in close, they want to give it to James Conner. They really trust him when they get in close. So coming off a 1,500 yards from scrimmage season, James Conner, snoozy guy, he's going to be a value again. No one ever likes drafting him, but he's always just sitting there in the middle rounds.
Okay, the free NBC Sports Now channel is your home for NFL Draft Month with more than 100 hours of draft programming throughout April. Daily draft coverage includes PFT Live, The Dan Patrick Show, Chris Sims Unbuttoned, and Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Plus, tune in for the NFL Draft Ranking Special with Connor Rogers and updated mock drafts premiering every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, go to NBCSports.com/now. We're going to hit our last break. When we come back, last call, we'll take a look at season-long passing yards over-unders. Sportsbook is the #1 sportsbook for live betting, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown! It's yours! Why won't you take it? Because it is yours.
Okay, let's look at passing yard totals for the season. Terrifying. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes under 4,050.5. He went under this last year despite being fully healthy. We just keep expecting every year now that the Chiefs passing game is going to be fixed in the regular season.
Yeah.
I just need to see it to believe it.
Part of the problem is they don't need to throw. Their defense is so good, like they can, quote, grind out wins. So,
What do you like, Lawrence?
I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts over 3,200.5. He threw for 2,900 last year. He missed nearly 3 games getting injured there. The only worry is Eagles could be laying the smackdown on teams, but I feel like they're going to have to play a lot more like they did in the Super Bowl, where teams are focusing more on Saquon now.
Yeah, I'm taking Sam Darnold under 3,500.5 passing yards here. He's not in Minnesota anymore. He's now going to Seattle, where he's going to have to play outdoors with worse weapons than he had and a less fantasy-friendly, less pass-first offense in Seattle than he was Minnesota. His offense coordinator, Clint Kubiak, has been an OC twice in his career, and in the 2 years that he was an OC, his passing rate was 18th in the NFL and 21st. You think about a Mike McDonald coach team, what do they want to do? They want to play good defense and control the clock. I just don't see Sam Darnold, who, by the way, might also get hurt and is behind one of the worst offensive lines in football. I just don't see him getting to this number.
That's the thing. You're mentioning the potential to get hurt. These numbers, they always look low because your brain doesn't bake in the injury risk. And Sam Darnold held the ball for over 3 seconds per dropback last year behind a much worse offensive line now in Seattle than he had in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. This is our, generally speaking, when you get a season-long prop, take the under. Like 80% of season-long props, the under hits. So if you're looking at an under. All right, that music means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Lawrence, for Jay, for Stupid Deb, who produced that segment, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you next Thursday. Peace out! Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.